I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. If you look at most strategic plans for 2025 or 2026, most likely you're going to see a strategy that has to do with finding and retaining top talent. Why? Because it's tough out there. A lot of people are going into retirement age. We have an aging population. And we are also just seeing that it's harder and harder to get good people because the skills keep getting better and our education system has not necessarily caught up. We have heard that there is also only 32% of people who are actually fully engaged in the work that they do, which means a lot of people are not engaged in the work that they do, AKA they are more apt to leave that company for something better, looking for the greener pastures. In fact, we found out that 3.9 years is the average time that an employee spends at their company. So there's a lot of churn out there. So it's very important for companies to find ways in which to find and attract talent. Sometimes we cannot find talent in our own backyard. We have to go outside of our state and maybe even internationally. And that's what the subject of this podcast episode is all about, is how do you find and retain top talent who might actually live in another country? What does it look like to have the kind of culture that is engaged and productive with people who live in many different time zones? How do you build culture over Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams? And then what are the telltale signs for a company to be able to say, yes, we are in the right industry to go and look for people outside of the United States, or no, we're not. We should probably stay closer to home. So my next guest is an expert on this. His name is Jonathan Romley, and he is one of the world's most foremost experts on global talent management and the future of work. He's recognized as a leading authority in navigating the complexities of international talent acquisition. Jonathan is the founder of Lundi, Lundi, a global talent firm specializing in innovative strategies for attracting, retaining, and developing top talent across all borders. He's also got a book that just came out. He used to have a really popular podcast, but I think he's taking a little bit of a hiatus on that. I talked to him when he was in Warsaw, Poland. The guy's just all over the place. So please welcome my next guest on Leadovation, Jonathan Romley. So good morning, Jonathan. I should say good afternoon. I hear that you are coming into this conversation from beautiful Warsaw, Poland, as you describe, sort of the most American-looking European city that you've ever been to. I understand what you're talking about. When it comes to this topic around finding good talent and sourcing them, you've done a great job of building this, international company to do that. But are there certain industries whereby maybe it's not a good idea to try to source my people from outside my state, let alone outside my country? Or are there industries where it's a great fit? You should be thinking about that. What is the criteria that somebody should be thinking about in terms of sourcing outside their state or even outside their country?
The place to start is, does this job require hands and feet? And if those hands and feet are required, do they need to be physically present? Are there customers involved in the interactions, which could mean, a cleaning company or it could mean a brain surgeon, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a technical job, but it might sound obvious. But a good first place to start is, does this job actually require physical presence? And if it does, who do we, where does that person need to be? I'm just going to mute this. I'm sorry.
Understood.
Where does that person need
that
to
sounds
be?
good.
So, I mean, I think
I guess on
this
the
is
other
really the
side
place
of,
to start.
yeah, right. So, but what about this idea, though? All right, so we've figured out that we can actually don't need people, hands and feet, as you would say, to be able to do the work that they do. And yet, we also want to make sure that these people that we hire stick around. I think I saw something on the somewhere recently with Gallup that engagement rates, full engagement is like around 32%, which means most people are not engaged at some level within their companies, and that people, I think, stick around like around 3.9 years on average in the company that they're in before they either are moved out or they move themselves out. So there's a lot of churn going on, and I'm sure that everybody understands and who would be listening in on this is that one of the biggest issues that people have is finding and retaining top talent. So as I understand, as I look at my companies and the people that we work with and what you hear, there seems to be a little bit more of a trend towards moving back to quote unquote brick and mortar workplaces. LinkedIn, for example, was even saying that not that long ago, I think last summer, that they were going to be bringing people back. What is the trend that you are seeing in the work that you do? Are we seeing that more people are going virtual, more people bringing people back, or is it back to it just depends based on whether or not you need feet and hands at the work?
Well, there are three reasons that companies tend to look internationally or overseas to hire talent. The first one is because you're expanding the business internationally. So you're opening, I don't know, the Asia Pacific market, and you're going to hire a country manager and a team in different markets. So that might be one reason. Now, whether they work remotely or not is a question about your company's policies, the kind of work that they need to do, but they might just be in another country. Well, the second reason is for cost efficiency or cost reduction, right? For reducing some talent costs in the business by perhaps hiring a new team or new division or new project overseas, or it could be moving one that already exists in your home state, your home country, to another place. Well, and I think that these are kind of well, the two most common. And the third one escapes me as I'm a little sleepy, but nevertheless, these are
No, that's okay.
the
Jet
two
lag is
reasons
a
that
killer,
people
man.
that
I
yeah,
understand.
jet
Yeah,
lag's killing me today. But anyway, look, these are the couple of reasons that people do this.
I get it.
And to answer your question, I think that you know, we tend to see companies that are kind of thinking about this, right? There's a cost, there's some mandate to reduce cost in the business, or there's some new place that we're expanding the business to. By the way, the third one is you're looking for the people and you can't find them locally. So it doesn't matter whether you want to hire in New York or not hire in New York. You just can't find the people that you need. So you're going to look nationally. And if it still doesn't work either within your budget or within the fit to your organization, then you'll start looking internationally. It's only natural. Now, how this impacts something like retention kind of depends on how you set up the process from the beginning. And a lot of that comes down to, when we talk about internationally, how you approach your entry into that market as an employer. And what I mean is there are kind of two ways to start hiring people in a new country, setting aside what their working models might be. The first one is to look at the local market, to look at what local employers are offering. So not what a company hiring from abroad is offering, but what does the job market offer to candidates in terms of benefits, not only salary, because let's assume everybody knows you're supposed to check what is the salary, and if you didn't, well, that was your mistake. Uh, the the things that we really need to look at, though, are things like benefits, vacation days, some things that might sound simple, but like in different countries, there are things that as Americans we would not think were very common. So in Brazil, it's common to give like meal tickets to your employees, even if they're working remotely, which would be something really unusual, I think, for most American entrepreneurs. Think like, I should do what? Or in Poland, it's quite common for companies to offer something called a multi-sport card, which is basically like a card that looks like a loyalty card and allows you to access different things. Maybe a fitness center, maybe a physical therapist, maybe I don't know what is on that card, but it gives you options in terms of how you decide to be fit. And so companies offer this instead of offering a gym membership, because maybe you don't want to go to the gym, maybe you want to get a tennis lesson, whatever. And that's also not something I see offered by companies, in the US usually, right? So in each market, there can be something unique. And they're usually, look, outside of the US, things like health insurance, usually not that expensive, right? We have people in the Philippines who have really great health insurance, and it's like $20 a month, right? So, what might sound like a crazy benefits package when you're starting to build your benefits package for a market, turns out might be really cost efficient. It might be a lot. It sounds like a lot to give, but the cost of it actually won't be that much. And it's really important if you're going to, in my opinion, the first way is the way to do it before I talk about the second one, actually, since I'm selling it already. This is the way you have to do it, because otherwise, if I give you different employment conditions, right? If I give you my Wisconsin employee handbook and say you have American holidays off and hope you enjoy Thanksgiving, and by the way, we cover some kind of health insurance, or we don't, or whatever we do, it's not like the standards of the market. And what happens is that maybe you pay a little bit more money and people are willing to work for you, but eventually the market will catch up, the salaries in the local companies will be higher, and they'll still be offering those benefits in the community and whatever the international brand may or may not be. I know we all think our companies are famous, but usually they're not, and especially to the people that we're trying to hire in a different country where we don't have customers and we're not selling anything. And of course, the other way to go into a market is like a cowboy and hire everybody as a contractor. And what this does, whether you use a freelancing website to do that, or you actually seek out people to hire, hiring people as a contractor might be easy for you, the employer, right? And it is, we can 1099 anybody, but for somebody in another country, they may need to register themselves as a business and make VAT reports every month. That's value added tax, a thing that we don't know about in the US, but is a big European pain in the butt. And that becomes a burden on your employees. So, they might just get sick of that, right? They want to be they want to be an accountant or a graphic designer or, an executive assistant or a software engineer. If they wanted to be an accountant, they would be an accountant. And of course, the cobbler's children have no shoes. If you're an accountant, you don't actually want to do your own accounting. So, this is the other way that you can do it. It works in some markets. So one of the things that we're really good at my company, Lundi, is understanding where and how labor markets work and having a good read on that across a lot of different countries, so that we can help you to say, okay, well, if you're hiring software engineers in Argentina, the preferred model of compensation is actually as a contractor because of the currency fluctuations, XYZ. But if you're hiring, software engineer in Colombia, they're most likely going to want to be a full-time employee, which is going to have an impact of, 23% employer tax costs on top. So, these are things you have to think about. However, if we want to compare retention over somebody that has, let's say, correct benefits and employment, and somebody that's in like a third type of employment, we can call it, it's still employment, but it's a third type of employment. uh, they might not be willing to stick around unless that's actually their preferred way to be employed, right? And this is probably the most common thing,
Right.
other than not being a fit within the organization. But this is a hiring mistake. We all make hiring mistakes; they happen. Hopefully, not that often because they're very expensive. But once somebody's in the organization, they're onboarded and they're there, the first thing that's going to make them not be sticky is if everybody else is offering better, even social conditions. And those social conditions in different parts of the world might be as important or even a little bit more important than the salary.
Jonathan, let me ask you a different kind of question here. Most of the time, before this go back in time, before we had virtual work, when everybody came to work, drove to work, got out of their car, got off the bus, and walked into a building, and for the last several decades, hundreds of years, practically, probably, we kind of create this construct about what culture is, about what it means in terms of our vision, our mission, what our values are as an organization, was always sort of developed by this assumption that those values would be displayed and expressed in these sort of live face-to-face interactions, right? And so you create these value statements, you create these company cultures based on that idea that we are all going to be together face to face. Well, now, of course, with COVID, we've got all sorts of other things that have happened and disrupted the industry. And in companies like yourself, we've got workers all over the globe possibly working for our company. Do you see that there is a shift of what we define culture to mean because the way we express culture is different? Because the way we express culture is actually done virtually over a Zoom or WebEx or Teams call versus in a face-to-face? Are we redefining what culture means because the place where it lives, the place where it gets expressed, has changed? And if so, what have you noticed?
Well, I think it's true that we're all alone together when we're working in a totally remote company, and that some touch points have to be created, whether those are kind of offsites or even virtual offsites, depending on what your budget might be, to try to get everybody to mix. But I mean, I think that this is going to be scary. I'm going to make myself say something here that is going to make me feel a little bit older than I am. So I think that Gen Z is driving a change here, and that's Gen Z is a broad stroke all over the world. What do I mean? It's other generations work as an identity, right? What I do, my job, is part of my identity. And for Gen Z, work is a place to get money, and it's not their identity. And they've come into the workforce.
So that would mean that our definition of culture might be different based on the generation that we are a member of.
I think that the values in a company that are important, right? If we're trying to define values that resonate with everyone also means the newest entrants into the workforce, because I mean, those are the ones that are going to term out the latest, right? First in, last out. So I think that
Right.
company values, company culture has to not only be adapted. I mean, one, it has to be adapted. If you say we're going to do a totally remote company, you can't do it under the same culture and values, because now you're so many different cultures and so many different value systems that we have to think really globally, right? I think often when those exercises are done, they're done within the context of where are my employees and where are my customers. And these are going to be this is our mission statement. These are our core values. And it should resonate with my team and my customers. And if your team was in Arizona and now your team is in 20 countries, things might need to look a little different in order for everybody in order for that to have an impact on the people that are working for you, right? So if you want that your core values to have an impact on your team, then you need to think about where is your team And what do they care about when defining those core values? So exercise has to be done again.
Do you feel that younger workers value values when it comes to work environments less than the older workers? Meaning, like, to your point, hey, I'm here for a job. I'm here to collect a paycheck. I have a great work-life balance. I go do things outside of work. I got family, friends, activities, whatever. That's where I get my sort of human sustenance, interaction, recognition, approval, community, feeling valued. I get it from outside of work. I don't get it from work. Whereas a baby boomer or somebody of an older generation might say, no, actually, I get fed interactively through the people that I know at work. And maybe even in some cases, I rely on my family less. What's your take on this?
I think that the younger generation, from a work-life balance perspective, might see a lot more of that balance than previous generations. That's the first thing. And how much do values matter to them? Well, I didn't really, and maybe I was just living in a box and not paying attention. But the idea of a public benefit corporation or this like certified B Corp, and the impact-driven mission of those companies saying, okay, we're not here, in the traditional definition of a corporation to drive shareholder value, but rather to exist for the common good. But okay, we understand it's a business. We're going to make money and we're going to have profit, but our decisions won't only be driven by profit. Now, it's a beautiful mission.
Right.
I don't think it.
Right.
I don't think it resonates with everyone. I really admire the companies and the leaders that adopt this in their companies, but my company is not a B Corp, right? Despite having a really positive impact in the far reaches of the world that we work, we're a profit-driven company at the end of the day, just as most are. And I think that this, when we see younger people come into our company, like new grads, freshers out of university, the mission that that we have in our company tends to resonate with them, which is kind of the idea, that talent isn't bound by borders, and that that opportunity to some extent should be equalized. I'm paraphrasing. It's better somewhere else. I don't even use it that much, right? But we've heard when we're recruiting, like, oh, well, your mission really aligned with my values. And I've had family members that have gone, because we're recruiting all over the world. I've had family members that have, gone abroad to work and had some experience about that. And, maybe it was negative, maybe it was positive. It's usually kind of mixed. So the idea that you kind of transition from moving people to work, moving work to people, is something that can resonate. I mean, that's our own personal story. But I think that this is taken even further by companies that are primarily mission driven, and those seem to be attractive. Those seem to be attractive to young people. They seem to be more attractive than companies that are very corporate, purely driven, very obviously by profit. Pharmaceutical companies, for example.
I would agree with that.
Nothing against
my experience in working with organizations that. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think that, what the company does and how it supports the community, I think is a very strong value for younger people than maybe the older generation who went to work to support their family and was more of a duty. And again, this is a huge oversimplification. So those of you who are out there going, wait a minute, Dean, I don't agree with that. I guess I'm really making some broad brushstrokes. Last night I was like going to bed and I was reading a Harvard Business Review that came in, it comes in every couple of months. And it was all about essentially loneliness at work. And in fact, I've mentioned this before in this podcast, that our current Surgeon General in the United States is now really feeling that the epidemic that we should be paying attention to is loneliness. Loneliness and isolation is the two things that he's really focused on, where most Surgeon Generals will focus on things that are more physically based, like overweight, obesity, cardiac issues, diabetes. This particular Surgeon General is saying, no, we have a problem with loneliness and isolation, and it's not only causing mental health issues, but it's causing health issues. And so, and I think about what Vivek Murthy was saying, and I was also thinking about what this article is all about in terms of we have lonely workplaces out there. How have you been able to support the connectivity of people who are working together virtually? Meaning, how has your organization addressed this potential loneliness issue when you have people who don't see each other? How do you build culture? How do you connect people? How do you bond people? How do you create teams when you got the team members from all over the world who may never in their life see each other?
2 weeks ago, I was in Zion National Park in Utah, and you can't go inside past a certain point with your car, so you park and you get on a bus, and the bus is driving you up into the park. And there were two college students sitting behind me. I was with my brother, and well, actually, maybe there were three. I don't know. I didn't turn around, but one of them was suggesting to the other one, like, well, who is going to sit in the seat on the bus? And one of the students said, well, I'm going to stand. You know, sitting is the new smoking. Sitting is the new smoking. So along the lines of what you've just, and I felt like I really have to write this down. She said, I just keep telling my dad sitting is the new smoking. And I thought, oh, I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting right now. Oh no. And if you think about it, boy, do we sit a lot, actually. Boy, do we sit a lot. So it was a knowledge bomb from a 19-year-old kid, but okay. I just couldn't help but think about that when you were mentioning the FDA and loneliness. And of course, not only are we alone, but we're alone sitting. So this is this is pretty scary. So how do we manage this within organizations? Well, I mean, there are two primary ways that we see companies do this. The first one is for companies that are entirely remote or mostly remote. They will organize, have a budget for offsites, which is funny because you're never on site, but you're going to have an offsite. So the name of the event stayed the same. It's an offsite, despite there is no on-site. Okay, whatever. But they organize quarterly, twice a year, annually. Annually is probably not enough, but what their budget allows, an event where everybody comes together, and they may have, one big annual one and teams that get together separately or regionally to try to recreate and work in an office or work in a house or do whatever, or work in a hotel, I don't know, together over some days. This is something that we do in my company. So I live in the south of Spain, in a city called Marbella, which is very nice. I'm not going to lie; it's a real nice place, and what we do is it's also convenient for me because I don't have to go anywhere. So what we do is bring teams and team members into Spain, and all preferences to each person, right? So I'm working in an office actually. Part of that is because I have two small kids at home, and it's helpful not to be, if I want to get mostly anything done, at least during the hours that they're at school. So they come and they'll work. That's not my children that will come and work in the office, but our team members for 1 week here or there. It might be a whole team. It might be one person, and then we still all try to get together, once in a year, right? So this is.
And that's everybody coming to a physical location, as you say.
Everybody coming to a physical location. Everybody coming to a physical location. Now, logistically, this gets pretty complicated the bigger that your company gets. And I only do this with FTEs, and the majority of what you would think of our headcount in our business is contingent. So they're only working when they're working. And well, we love them just as much as we love everybody else, right? All of our children equally, but some children more equally than others. And of course, we're talking about FTEs, full-time employees only participating in this kind of a program. And for us, that's a budget constraint. It's not that we don't want to invite the whole world, but it's several thousand in the end. And that would, that's a concert. It's not, it's not an offsite. So this is one way. Another way, companies, particularly during the pandemic, tried to create some online, like things like a Zoom beer or a Zoom improv or a Zoom anything. I'm saying improv only because I watched an episode of yours not that long ago today, right? But they're creating some ways to try to get people to engage with each other online or offline, but let's stick with online here. And I think that some of those things land, but it kind of depends from where those events are being organized, right? So, for example, we have a team in the Philippines. There's some holiday party which is organized, and it's in the middle. It's at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the reason is that people's shifts from working overnight from the U.S. are ending. So 9 o'clock in the morning is there 9 p.m. And it goes until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And even trying to align times in different places and what people will do in an event like that, it might reflect that you're only thinking about your American employees or wherever you are. You're only thinking about your German employees, and you organized a virtual Oktoberfest. Strangest thing about Oktoberfest, it's in September. And it didn't land with everybody. Yeah. I don't know. You had somebody that didn't drink alcohol or doesn't like pretzels. I don't know. So this is what we see. We see companies organizing online type events, companies sending physical things and trying to create discussion points, among their employees. I don't know what it is that they've sent, a t-shirt, a water bottle. Okay, we can be more creative than that. But to try to create ways that cause people to engage and have that kind of virtual water cooler conversation that is what brings the office to life. These are things that companies do. I think you have to do a blend. So you have to all get together on a pretty regular frequency, at least within teams, and then it is good actually to get together and work together from time to time.
Let me ask you, how far, because I know you've got some background in technology and AI and so forth. I keep seeing a day when we're wearing some sort of, virtual glasses and we can get into a whole new space. I'm down at ASU a couple of months ago, and they've got quite a setup there that they've teamed up with DreamWorks out of California. And they've got an incredible space where you put on these VR glasses and you are immersed in this new environment. And I can see that at some point, education will be delivered that way. We'll learn biology by actually being able to almost be in that scene because of the virtual reality we've created. Can you see how far out are we to be able to create sort of virtual realities for our remote teams where we all come together from our different parts of the world, like your company or other companies that might be listening in, but we all share this same location in this virtual reality that we've created, where the interactivity really feels more three-dimensional. It's not this two-dimensional flat screen that you and I are interacting on. We actually have a three-dimensional sort of experience that might actually make us feel more emotionally connected to one another. How far out are we to having a world like that? Or do you have a sense of that?
I know that we've seen Meta demonstrate some, and not recently, right? Some avatar-like environment where we might participate in a conference. Apple has done the same. I live in Europe. Vision Pro not sold in Europe, but and didn't buy it when I was in the U.S. a couple weeks ago. But we've seen this idea of having the me-emoji as an avatar to participate. And I mean, I think that the technology is there, but adoption is a whole other story. Do I want to do that?
Yeah,
man, I don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
I mean, maybe now, maybe that's I'm not Gen Z. Maybe that's why. So that might be, well, for me, I think that that kind of lawnmower man future, to just really date myself, is, it's not a matter of whether the technology exists. The technology exists. It's a matter of whether we can get people to adopt this kind of technology and what impact it would have. Now, would it have an impact? Psychology says probably yes, it would have an impact. I believe that it would. Where are we in terms of getting the cost down so much that a company sends, that you get a headset and, as part of your job, I don't know. As a replacement for your laptop, I don't know. So I'd say that,
Right.
I think we're there, but I think that user adoption is not there. And, there's also a question of this kind of uncanny valley, right? Which is when the avatar looks a little bit too real. So are we just going to be these kind of avatars which are cartoon-like and not reflective of our own person, but reflective of our perception of self and our own identity and how we want to show ourselves to other people in the organization? So it sounds cool.
It sounds like the Matrix, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. I'd like to do it once and then get back to you.
Yeah. Right. But Jonathan, I think what you've helped me do in this conversation is open up my eyes to recruiting, not just from within my own state, outside my country, but internationally, and that it sort of makes it seem more possible. We're not in that position as a company, but I know a lot of the organizations that we talk and work with are always struggling to try to find good talent. And I know there's all sorts of legal issues and cost issues that you have to consider and culture issues. But, we're here, much like the idea that the avatar is here. We just got to adopt. We are here when it comes to our ability to bring work to our employees versus the other way around. Just to kind of close us off, I mean, how can people follow what you do? I know you got a book. How can people sort of learn more about what you and your organization are about?
To learn more about me and the book, we can go to Global Talent War. Wait, winning the Global Talent War? Nope, globaltalentwar.com. One more time. To learn more about me and the book.
It's that jet lag again.
Yeah. We can go to globaltalentwar.com. Yeah, so that's globaltalentwar.com. I've got a weekly newsletter there, picking up 5 articles from around the interwebs on borderless talent, kind of virtual labor mobility, and the future of work. The book is on Amazon and everywhere else you can buy a book. And my company, Lundi, is on the web at Hello Lundi. That's LUNDI.com.
It's great. And do consider bringing your podcast back. I think it'd be great to be able to have that platform support the book and support your company. That's just my own plug for you.
Thanks, Dean.
Well, Jonathan, it's been great. Go back to bed, man. I know it's late there. You're like on fumes. Have a good time in Warsaw, and I do appreciate your time and your energy.
Dean, I appreciate the conversation. It was a great one, just as I expected. So happy to be here.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newlund. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.